Hello and welcome to Charlie's Crochet. Today I'll be showing you how to make my Valentine's bears. This one will work in any yarn type with an appropriately sized needle. I personally think it looks really cute in a chenille or velvet yarn. This one is made with Lion Brand's Nap Time yarn. I will be using cotton today. This is a 4-ply cotton because it's easier to see the stitches while I'm teaching. I will also be using dark pink for the black parts of the panda bear, just because it's harder to see black stitches and because I think that will make it more Valentine's Day-y. This is an easy pattern, but it does require a little bit of sewing, especially on the arms and the legs there, as well as the tail is embroidered, and on these smaller bears the nose is embroidered too. But it's not difficult, and I'll walk you through it in the pattern. I've decided also to make a Ko-fi account for my patterns. On my last one with my ducks, I got a lot of views on my video and I left the pattern in the description. Which is fine. I'm fine with giving away my patterns for free, but you know, if you can, kick me like a couple of bucks for the written pattern, because it does, you know, take time and effort for me to do that, then that would be really appreciated. It's a pay-as-you-can model, so if you need the free pattern, you can get the pattern for free from Ko-fi, but yeah, please consider contributing. So I'm using 4-ply cotton yarn today. These are just ones I had lying around the house. So this is the Hobby Rainbow Bella Baby, which is sold at Spotlight. It's just a newer label on that one. I had them left over from other projects, so I may as well use them. The first thing we're going to do is create a magic ring with 6 single crochets in our white yarn. I'm going to pull that tight. And we're going to slip stitch and chain 1 to join and start the next round. So the next round we will increase in every stitch. So do 2 single crochets in every single crochet of the first round. Okay, and join and slip stitch and chain 1 to start the next round. At this point I like to just tie the magic ring so that it won't come undone. You can weave in the ends. I don't necessarily for amigurumi because you won't be able to see the inside where the tail is. But if you just tie a large enough knot so that it won't slip through the stitches you've made. Okay, so for round 3, we'll be doing an increase and then a single crochet 6 times. So in the first stitch we're doing an increase, which is just 2 single crochets in the same stitch, and then we're doing a single crochet in the next stitch, and we're going to do that around 6 times on the bear. So we'll have 6 increases in this round, and I'll meet you back at the end of the round. Okay, so for round 4 we're going to do 2 single crochets in the next 2 stitches and then increase in the 3rd stitch, and what that's going to do is just offset the increases so that they line up in this round over the single crochets from the previous round. If you stack the increases on top of each other, it doesn't matter for a pattern this small, but when you start to get into larger size circles and larger patterns, what it will do is create points where the increases all line up. So if you've ever made an amigurumi pattern that came out with like a bit of a hexagon or octagon shape on the top, that's what was happening. And then what you can do is you just have to slightly offset the increase from the round before. so that the increases are always over single crochets. Okay, so that is the end of our increases. That is the end of our increases for the top of the head. So now we will be doing 5 rows of single crochet all the way around, so no increases anymore. There we go, and that is the end of 5 rows of single crochet, which will take us to the neck decrease. So now is a good time to make sure that it's the right way out, which means that the stitches with the little bar through them will be on the inside, and the outside stitches should look like a V or like a little X, depending on if you're using yarn over or yarn under on your single crochets, but that's the ones on the back will always have this little bar at the top, and that's how you know that they're the back. Okay, so now we will begin the neck. So we will be doing 12 decreases around the neck part here. And I'll use the invisible decrease, which just means you pick up the first loop of 2 stitches and single crochet through both of them like that. You can also decrease by doing the start yarn over and pick up a loop through the next 2 stitches and then the second one through all 3 of those. But the invisible decrease makes it less gappy when you've finished. Oops, yarn stuck. So I prefer that method generally. Okay, now for the first row of the body, we're going to do an increase in every stitch around, so 2 single crochets per single crochet stitch all the way around. Okay, and that is the start of the body. At this point we're going to switch to our black, or whatever color you're using as black. So just pull it through the loop there and tighten the loop of white. Then you can trim the white one off there. And what we're doing with this one is just 3 rounds of single crochet. Okay, so that is our 3 rows of black around the bear, and that's just going to create this band of black that the pandas have around their chest there. If you wanted to make just a little teddy bear one, you don't have to change colors at all, just use your brown throughout, or white if you want to make a polar bear. And we're just going to switch back, switch colors back to the white now. And actually I've done the chain stitch at the end of that round, and it's better to do the chain stitch in the new color, so I'm just going to undo that and swap the white back in. Oops, I had to delete some video to make room to keep filming, so I'm gonna have to start this row again. We join the color to be the first chain, and then for this row we're doing increase and then 3 single crochet 6 times around, so there'll be 6 increases. So increase 1, 2, 3 single crochet, and then increase again. Okay, so for this next row, next 5 rows actually, we're just doing 5 rows of single crochet all the way around. And I'll just meet you at the end of this one. Okay, so that is the end of our 5 rows of single crochet down his body there. What we're going to do now is start the decreases for the bottom of the bear. So we're going to do a decrease and then 3 single crochets 6 times in this round. And again, I'm using invisible decrease, but you can just use a standard decrease if that's what you prefer to do. Okay, and that is our first row of decreases. For the next row, we're going to actually do 8 decreases. So we're going to do a single crochet and decrease 8 times around. And for our final row, we're just going to do 8 decreases all the way around. That will bring us to 8 stitches. If yours is starting to get really small, or you just are going to need more room for stuffing, you can just put a slip stitch before this final row of decrease. Slip stitch. Put a stitch marker in to just hold your working yarn before this final row of decreases. And then we'll do the eyes and the ears first, and then come back to do the final decreases. I'm just going to do the decreases now, but yeah, that's a good method for if you're using a very, very small yarn and you need more room. And so that is the end of that row, and we're not going to slip stitch to join it just because that's going to give us more room to stuff it. And I'm sorry, Winnie's barking. So just tie it off there, and we're not going to stitch it closed yet. First we have to do the eyes and the ears. So for the eyes, to get this outline sort of thing, what we're going to do is do our magic circle with 6 single crochets around the safety eye. So grab your black color, start a magic ring. And magic rings are really pretty effective for this. If you need to do a chain 2 and then do your 6 stitches into the first chain, you can. You're just going to have to push the little safety eye in a bit harder for that one than this is going to be. And there's a little trick if you're doing it in chenille, because magic rings can be quite hard, and that something here. I'll do a tips and tricks bit at the end. Okay, so do your magic ring, put your little safety eye in the middle of the loop, and try and close your 6 stitches around it, and then join into the first one. I should have left a longer tail. Okay, so that is 1, and we're going to do it 1 more time. Okay, and then to attach that to the bear, you can fold his body roughly in half, and where that final stitch is going to be right down the back of it. So turn to the other side, and then pick a place to put your first eye in the 5th row. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So put his first eye there and attach the back. So about 6 stitches away in that same row is 1 under there, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So right there. Whoops, sorry. I'm going to just check that it's the 5th row, like that, and put the back on the safety eye. So we're going to pull the inside one into the bear. So that's the one that was in the middle. It's getting a bit crowded in there with the color changes. But the one that was in the middle, we're just going to pull it inside and leave the outside one to sew it on. And I'm just going to tie those together inside. Not tight, just so that the tails won't come undone if it gets caught on anything, so that they won't get pulled back out basically. Okay, and so what we're going to do is take the tails around the eyes, and we're going to sew that down just to the face part of the bear. So go through Winnie, just around the outside of the eye, tie that down. And slip it inside. Okay, and do the other one. Okay, so there we have the eyes. It's looking a bit like it's got pink eye. To do the nose, if you're doing a safety nose, you're just going to go sort of to the middle of those two. And if you're doing it with embroidery, so the safety nose, I would try to poke it through about here. And if you're doing an embroidery, you're going to just do a couple of goes over that line there. Oh my gosh, that's kind of a mess. Okay, so to do the embroidery nose, yeah, I don't have a safety nose that's going to be small enough to work on this size of bear. If you're doing a chenille one, you should be able to find one better. Yep, so one row down from the eyes and just smack in the middle. And just go a couple of times over that one, and just kind of like a heavy-handed cross stitch, just go the top row, and then okay, and then just tie it together at the bottom. And tuck them both inside. Now to do the ears is pretty much the same as I was doing with the duck's beaks. So create a slip stitch and put that on your hook. And then roughly on either side in the same place in row 6. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yes, so we're doing it from row 6 moving towards 5. So insert it in the hole of row 6, but instead of doing like the duck across, we're going upwards towards 5, and then slip stitch that on, and then into the next row we're doing a single crochet, into the next row another single crochet like so, and then a slip stitch in there. So then chain 1, turn and miss the slip stitch, and then do another single crochet on top of that single crochet like that, and then and then just do a slip stitch on top of the first slip stitch as well. Okay, and then pull those into the body on opposite sides. So this one through there, and this one through there. Oops. Try to not catch any of the other ones inside. You can trim those as you go if it's going to become all tangled. And then just try and knot that inside as well. Okay, and that is the first ear. Trim the tails. Just save the trimmings as well, because you can just stuff them back inside as well when you're finished. And then repeat that on the same side, on the opposite side, starting in the same row and roughly the same number of stitches away. So you've got 1, 2 there, so 1, 2 here. Okay, and then we have our ears and our eyes. At this point we can stuff the bear, and now that he's stuffed we can just sew closed the belly. And my favorite way to do that is to just go so that is the stitch that one is in. Just pick up the front loop of each stitch around. So, and then just pull that tight to close it. And you're just going to want to tie it, so run it through another couple of stitches and create a knot, and then just poke your needle through the bear to a random point and trim the yarn on the other side. So to create the arms, we're going to do a magic ring with 8 single crochets in it. 1, and we're just going to do 7 rounds of single crochet around, so just 8 single crochets in each round around for 7 times, and I will meet you back at the end of that to show you how to finish it. Okay, so that is the end of the 7th row. What we're going to do now is lightly stuff it. If it's a bit tight, you can use tweezers to help, and take a bit of stuffing with your tweezers and just push it in. What we're going to do is fold it in half and slip stitch through the stitch we're currently in and the last stitch of the previous row, and just slip stitch through both sides at once, like that, all the way, for 4 slip stitches it should be. Or you can just press it together and sew if that's easier. Just leave enough of a tail to sew it onto the bear as well. And then what you're going to do is make 2 of those. Okay, so now we have the 2 arms. It's time to sew them onto the bear, and what you're going to do is sew them across the pink band of its body, and try to make it kind of just slightly back from the side, so maybe like a row behind the ears, and just sew it through that row there, like so. And this one, since we're going to sew the heart to his belly, what will happen is that his arms will kind of poke out like that. And I'll show you how to avoid that on the feet. But since we're sewing the heart, it will hold his arms in front. If you don't want him to hold a heart, then you can sew the arms on the same way that we're going to do the feet. So there's the arms. Next we're going to do the legs. And to start the legs, we're doing another magic ring, and this time we're doing 6 single crochets into the magic ring. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and just pull that tight, and slip stitch, chain 1 to start the next round. And we're just going to do 2 single crochets into each to increase, so that will be 6 increases around. Just make sure you secure it, otherwise it starts to loosen and you will have a hole in the foot of your bear. And then yes, just 1 single crochet into each stitch around, and we're doing that for 8 rounds of the leg. So that's 1 more than the arms. Okay, so that is the end of our 8 rows. And we're just going to do the same thing as with the arms. Gently stuff it and either sew or slip stitch it closed. And again, fold it in half and find your first stitch and your last stitch, and just slip stitch in each. And I forgot to say, I don't do the chain 1 at the end of that last row to start the slip stitches, otherwise it can get a bit fiddly. So that's just a little tip there. And leave a tail to sew it in and tie it off. And then we're going to make 2 of those again. Okay, so once you've done your 2 legs, it's time to sew them onto the body of the bear. You're going to do them from about this row to, it's going to end about here. This one's from the bottom up, and try to make it roughly line up with the arms. And the trick to getting his legs to sit like this instead of open like the arms are doing here is the first time we sew it on, we're going to go only upwards, so go through the slip stitch part. Yep, and once we get to the top, sew that corner over the top of the body like that. Like so, and then this time we're going to go over it again, but going this way. So take 1 stitch away and just sew it. And then you can tie that off there, or if you want it to be more secured, you can come up sort of maybe 2 or 3 rows away and just tack down his body there. Like that, and that'll just keep his leg more attached, and then you can tie it off. and then do his other side. So the tail, I'm just going to do right at the start of those decreases on the bottom, and just between like 1 or 2 stitches, run it loosely a couple of times. Okay. And then I'm just going to poke it back through the leg to hide the pink part. So that is the main part of the bear. Let's do that. So the heart, I have to make 2 pieces, and we're going to use some stitches that if you've only ever made amigurumi, you might not have done a half double or a double crochet yet. So what I'm going to do is make the heart once, and I'm just going to tell you what stitches to do and not explain them. And then the second time, I'm going to explain how to do a half double and a double crochet if you've only ever done amigurumi, so that you can learn how to do those stitches as well. And they're not very hard, but if you've made this before and you don't need the beginner explanation, just watch the first part. And if you're a beginner, honestly watch the first part anyways and then watch the explanation, because seeing it twice might actually help. So the first thing we're going to do is just do 8 single crochets into a magic ring. Okay, so then what we're going to do is into this first single crochet, we're going to do a single crochet and then a half double, and then into the next stitch we're going to do 2 double crochets like that, and into the one after that we're going to do 2 double crochets and 1 single crochet, and then a slip stitch into the next stitch, and then another single into this one and 2 double into the same. So that will be 5 of our 8 stitches so far. Okay, and then we're going to do a double crochet into the next one, and you can see how it's kind of mirroring. So, you know, single, half double, 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 single, single, double, double. It's just literally the flip of what we're doing one side, we're doing the other side, which means that the next one is going to be a half double and then a single, and into the bottom stitch we're going to do a half double, a double crochet, and then another half double, and then join it to the slip stitch, join it with a slip stitch to the single crochet we started with. And for the first heart you can cut the tail and tie it off. And this is what I mean, why you need to secure your magic rings, otherwise they become like these massive circles. Yep, okay, so that is the first piece of the heart, and we're going to do that again, and if you know how to do that, just do that again. If you need to know how to do a half double and a double crochet, this is the part that's for you. So we're going to start with our 8 single crochets again. Okay, and then pull that one and slip stitch single, slip stitch chain, sorry. Okay, and then the first stitch into that same stitch as the chain will be the single crochet, and then we're going to do a half double. So what you do is you yarn over and then insert your hook into the stitch that you want to go through, so that's the same one we just did for the single crochet, and then yarn over again And now you've got 3 stitches, yarn over and then pull it back through. So you've got 3 stitches and you're on this side of this stitch. And then you're going to yarn over again and pull it through all of the 3 stitches like that. Okay? So I'll just show you that again. So yarn over, stick it through that stitch, yarn over and hook it, and then pull it back through like you're doing the single crochet, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, and that is a half double crochet. And now to do the double crochet, you're going to start the same way. So yarn over, go into the next stitch, yarn over again and pull through, but this time we're only going to go through 2 stitches at a time. So yarn over and pull through 2 stitches, and then yarn over and pull through 2 stitches again, and that's your double crochet. So once again, that's yarn over, go through the same stitch to make 2 double crochets into that 1 stitch, then yarn over and pull it through to the right side, and then yarn over, pull it through 2 stitches, two wraps on your hook, and then yarn over again and pull it through the last 2, and that's your double crochet. And we're going to do another 2 into the next one. Okay, so double, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through. Yep, and then we're going to just do a single crochet in there. And slip stitch we've done, but if you don't know, it's just you yarn over on this side and pull it through without doing the second yarn over on the other side that you would for a single crochet. And then into the next stitch you're doing a single crochet and then 2 doubles, so yarn over, pull through, pull through, pull through, pull through, and then into the next stitch we're doing another 2 double, like that, and then we're doing another half double into this next stitch. So that's yarn over, poke it through, yarn over, pull through, and then yarn over and pull through all 3 stitches, or all 3 wraps that are on your hook like that. And then we're going to do a single crochet, and then a half double again. So yarn over, pull through, yarn over, and then yarn over through all 3 wraps, and then a double. So start the same way, and we're only pulling through 2 at a time, 1 2 1 2, and then 1 more half double. So into that final one it's a half double, a double, and then a half double, and then we're going to slip stitch to join it to our starting single crochet like that. And so that is how you do the little heart, and the different stitches just give it different heights so you can get the shape through there. Sorry, this one I'm not going to tie off because I'm going to slip stitch these 2 pieces together, but you can just sew them if that's too difficult. You're just going to put wrong sides together if you sew, so just the front pieces will be out like that, and then go through the stitch that you're already in and try to find the single crochet on this side. So that's the double, that's a half double, that's the single there, and then slip stitch those 2 together, and then slip stitch in each next stitch all the way around the heart, so like that. And then at this point you might want to think about stuff and just finish slip stitching around. Okay, so trim that one and leave a little bit of a tail to sew it on, and then knot it off. So where's my needle? To sew this onto the bear, what I generally do is just poke the tail through the heart to the back and sort of pick these middle two double crochets to sew it through. That's fine. I like the slip stitch side out. That's the alternative side, whatever you prefer. And then what you're going to do is, that's on the bottom of those two doubles, so put it through two parts in the through two stitches, sorry, in the bottom paw on the same side, so that the thing's facing out. See how the yarn comes out that side? So we're sewing it to this side of the bear. Tail too long again, and just do it once more over to secure that part. And then this time tighten it and go through the heart to the double crochet, the middle two double crochets on the other side. And this time it's coming out of the top, so what we're going to do is find the top of those two stitches on the paw and go down. But you don't have to do that. If it comes out the bottom when you poke it through that part, then do it on the bottom. And then just do once more to secure. And you also don't have to do the heart my way. If you've got a better kind of heart that you'd like to do, that is fine, use that. You can make it a little bit decorative. I have some glitter yarns, would be cute. If you're using a larger sized thing, you could maybe do a fully, maybe, you know, embroider someone's name or something on it if you wanted to. Whatever, it's up to you, make it your own. And so tie that off and then just trim the tail, poke it through the heart and trim it. And that is that. That is our bear. Ta-da! And I really do think it looks best in fluffy yarns, but again, I was just using this one because it does show the stitches more clearly than this one. And I wanted to make it easier for you guys to follow. Whoops, I've got a bit of an escaped tail there. Okay. Happy Valentine's. Let me know in the comments who you're making this for, or I just wanted to put in a little few tips and tricks in how to do this the best way, because I really think that it looks best working with fluffy yarns, so like your velvet yarns, your chenille yarns. I find velvet ones are slightly easier to work with than chenille. So here's some tips and tricks for working with a velvet yarn. The first one is to do the magic ring. One thing you can do to make it very easy, or much easier to work with a chenille yarn, is that you can actually hold it double with another yarn. So needs a larger hook. So you can hold it double with a yarn that's easier to work with, like an acrylic or a cotton. And that can be like a little bit easier on you there. And there's two ways to sort of do that. One way is you can use contrasting yarns to get kind of a effect like that, or you can use the same colored one. So I made this from Hobby's Mystery Crochet Along, and it uses a chenille yarn. It uses Honey Bunny held double with a cotton, and you can see where you can see the pieces of cotton throughout it. This one's, the body color was a green and grey and it blends a little bit better, but you can see you can get kind of an interesting effect. If you don't want that effect but you do want to hold them double, you can use yarns that match. So this one is a duck I made, and it is a white held double with a white, and you can kind of see a little bit and feel the cotton a little bit, but from a distance you can't really see it so well, and it blends in quite nicely, but the beak is done with the contrast there. So that is one way you can do it. If you want to only work with the chenille for the stitches but you still want to use a magic ring, you can do the magic ring part in in cotton as well, and then stitch it into the magic ring, and then when you pull it tight you should be able to pull the cotton so that it's invisible, and then just tie it off. I think you can also do it so you can pull the cotton out. I can't figure that out, but the invisible works fine for me. And then you just tie that off and leave your cotton pieces inside, and you would have no idea that you'd started that magic ring with a cotton. See how you can just not really see which stitches are which? It can be a bit hard, so that using held double with cotton can help with that. So that is that one. Tips for using chenille. In general, I wanted to just give a tip about yarn weights, because in my last video I had someone ask what the cotton was I use, and I generally I work with a 4-ply cotton, which in Australia we do our yarn weights with plies. So we've got 4-ply cotton, 8-ply cotton. You can get 10 and 12 plies, or 4-ply acrylic, 8-ply acrylic, whatever type of yarn you use, but I use cotton because acrylics hurt my hands. So this one is about a sport weight yarn, and this one is a double knit yarn, and it goes up from there. And you can use whatever size of yarn you want, but you want to just make sure you're using the right sized hook. So sometimes it will tell you needle size. You can use approximately that. I like the Hobie ones that they tell you what size is a range. And for amigurumi, I generally use the smallest end of the range. If you have really, really loose tension, you could even go a size smaller. If you have really tight tension and you do yarn unders, which can make your work a bit tighter, you could go more to the middle of the upper end of that range. But whatever it takes for you to be able to work it generally pretty well. And if you are getting a lot of gaps like this, you might be using a hook size too big. It should generally be kind of a closed fabric. The bear, I think, is the best one I did. Yeah. And the thing is that these patterns don't really have a gauge, so if you use different yarns you get different sized. So this is the bear's size with a 4-ply cotton. This is the bear's size with a sort of smaller ply velvet yarn. And if you were to use like a chenille or something, or like honey bunnies from Hobie, you could get maybe double the size of this bear. So as an example, these are 3 ducks. This duck is made with 4-ply cotton. This duck is made with a similar ply of a velvet yarn. And then this one is made with the honey bunny, and you can see this is exactly the same pattern, exactly the same number of stitches, but you can see how the size of the yarn you use makes a really big difference. So if you just want like a little desk ornament bear, use a small plied yarn, and if you want like a larger one to gift. Unfortunately, I can't make my bear in this scale because I just don't have the right colors. This was left over actually from that crochet along from Hobie, and I've got some yellow and orange that I sometimes use to make ducks, but I generally don't work with that size of yarn, and I no longer have access to buy from Hobie because they stopped shipping to Australia.